The night air was thick with the weight of unspoken words, and she could feel the tension crackling between them like a live wire. She had seen it in his eyes before, in fleeting moments where he thought she wasn't looking, a shadow of doubt, of something lurking beneath the surface of his well-practiced smile. Her pastor boyfriend, a man of God, a man who stood before the congregation every Sunday morning and spoke about loyalty, faith, love, and the sanctity of relationships. But she knew. Something felt off. Something gnawed at the back of her mind like a parasite whispering doubts in the stillness of the night. She had to know, she had to be sure, because if she was wrong, then she would fall to her knees in repentance. But if she was, right then, she needed to walk away before she lost more than just her faith. And so the test was set, a test of loyalty, a test of devotion and commitment. Not to the church, not to the congregation, but to her, to the promises he had made to her beneath the stained glass windows of their shared sanctuary. Her sister would be the bait, the ultimate temptation, an undeniable truth emerging from deception. Her sister was beautiful in ways that she wasn't where she was soft-spoken. Her sister was bold. Where she was reserved, her sister was daring. She knew it wouldn't take much. Just the right words, the right look, the right opportunity. The stage was set, the moment crafted meticulously. She watched from the shadows as her sister approached him. In the dim light of the church hallway, her heart pounding in her chest so loud she was sure they could hear it. But still she remained silent. Still she waited and watched and prayed that she was wrong. He smiled at her sister, the same way he smiled at her, and she felt something deep within her break, like a fragile pane of glass cracking under pressure. She could hear their voices, a quiet exchange filled with the tension of the unknown. Her sister reached out, a casual touch on his arm. A test. A trigger. A moment that would define everything she had built in her mind about him. He did not pull away. He did not step back. Instead, he leaned in ever so slightly, his voice dropping to a softer tone that made her stomach churn. She felt the weight of the truth pressing down on her. She had hoped he would pass. She had hoped that she had imagined the distance, the hesitation, the shifting glances. But the evidence was unfolding before her eyes. A man who had stood before God and declared his righteousness now teetering on the edge of betrayal. She wanted to scream, to burst through the darkness and drag him into the light of accountability. But she remained still, frozen by the reality of what she had just witnessed. The whispers continued, the space between them shrinking by the second her sister played her part. Well, the reluctant sinner, the hesitant seductress she did not have to try too hard for. He was already leaning towards sin, already unraveling beneath the weight of his own weakness. His hand brushed against her sister's fingers, a touch that sent a shockwave through her body, not from pleasure, not from excitement, but from the undeniable knowledge that everything she had believed in had been a lie. A man of God, a man of truth, a man of faith standing before temptation and failing the test that should have been effortless. There was no excuse, there was no justification, only the sharp sting of betrayal slicing through the very foundation of her love. She stepped forward now, the shadows no longer a refuge, but a stage where truth would be unveiled. His eyes widened, his lips parted, but no words came forth, because what could he say? What could he offer her in that moment that would mend the fracture that had just formed between them? Her sister stepped back. The game was over, the mask slipping from her face as she met her gaze, a look of understanding passing between them. She had wanted to believe in him. She had wanted to trust in the man who had led her in prayer, who had whispered promises of forever into her ear, but forever had become a lie. The moment his hands had reached for someone else, her voice did not waver when she spoke. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I wouldn't see the truth? He stammered excuses, half-formed explanations tangled in the weight of his guilt, but she was not interested in the poetry of liars. She was not interested in the hymns of hypocrisy. She had heard enough. She turned away, leaving behind the man she once loved, the man who had failed her test, the man who had chosen betrayal over devotion. She walked out of the church into the night air, breathing in the freedom that came with knowing she was no longer bound to a love that was never real. She had her answer, and that was all she needed. She walked away from the church, the echoes of his voice fading into the void behind her. She could feel the cool night wrapping around her like a silent embrace. Her sister followed at a distance, not daring to break the heavy quiet that stretched between them. The test was over. The results were clear, and yet a part of her still ached with the knowledge of what had been lost. She had given him everything: her trust, her heart, her devotion, and he had thrown it away for the briefest moment of temptation. She wondered if he had ever truly loved her, or if she had merely been a symbol, a trophy to complete his image of righteousness. Her steps grew steadier with every thought, her conviction solidifying like stone. She would not be a fool. She would not linger in the wreckage of something that was never real. The streetlights flickered above them, casting long shadows on the pavement. She exhaled slowly, watching the way her breath danced in the cold night air. Tomorrow, she would not cry. Tomorrow, she would not mourn the loss of a man unworthy of her love. Tomorrow, she would begin again without him, without doubt, without regret. She turned to her sister, a silent understanding passing between them. They had been through enough, and they would move forward together. The night stretched before her, endless and full of possibilities. She would heal. She would rise. She would find a love that did not require tests. Because real love, real faith, real devotion did not waver. In the face of temptation, it stood strong, it endured, and she would settle for nothing less.